Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Blue Dragon 5 here.
And Rohith Dhar.
And we got a bear of a podcast for you tonight, folks. That's right, the Bear FX show, sweeping the nation, making us all hungry for some quality entertainment. And lo and behold, there it is, right there for the taking. Right, look at all the foodies taking their little pictures. Forget taking pictures. We're gonna talk about the food. Well, it's right there. And this sumptuous meal of a show is ripe for the talking to. And yeah, so basically on the eve, well, I guess depending where you are in the world, the eve or right before we, and I think a lot of people have really seen, or at the very least seen all of season three. We're gonna be doing a little catch up on it, because preparation for this, we both have relatively recently. I think I myself last month. Um, Rohit very recently. We've watched the show, and we're here to talk about it. So, Rohit, what did you think of the Bear? This was your big idea. You really wanted to talk about this, so you finally saw it. What do you think?
I will say that I'm glad to make the suggestion and to actually watch both seasons. Overall, The Bear is a testament to taking an idea as broad and as multifaceted as the idea of obsession and passion. Those sort of two dual ideas and concepts that impact a lot of our day to day lives, and uses the fine dining or the restaurant industry, especially in Chicago, to really delve into that kind of human story. But it doesn't go in the way of, say, the of Whiplash, where it's sort of like, oh, this is how obsession could kind of unravel you. But I think this is a show that is incredibly humanistic in and really, I don't know if I would say that the show is very optimistic in that for these people that are cast in the show, they're so invested in making a fine dining experience, and there's a level of earnestness, there's a level of grit to it. And for me, it's very rare for a lot of shows to have a good balancing act where you're invested in the characters trying to make it through, but there's always a lot of struggles to get through. And doing that sort of, walking that tightrope, I think, is really well managed through the writing, through the acting. And in watching these two seasons, I'm, you know, am a big fan of a lot of the actors in the show. The writing is solid. The directing is also great in certain aspects. And right now, at US season three coming out, I'm really excited to see that sometime this weekend, and hopefully do our podcast on it. And overall, if the qualities of the show were, if there was a Michelin star for film and TV, this gets the whole 4 stars.
All right. Yeah. So there's been a lot of hype about the Bear. Between you and Tiki saying, "Hey, you're gonna watch the Bear?" Everyone's talking about the Bear. Um, Finally watched it, and I won't lie. The promise of Odenkirk was definitely kind of like the clincher. I mean, honestly, if someone just told me Oliver Platt's in this, I would have watched it. But like Odenkirk was like, okay, there we go. But yeah, boy, did it live up to the hype. It's kind of like, here's like a weird analogy for kind of the optimism thing. Okay, it's kind of like imagine Ratatouille crossed with Ted Lasso, but in Chicago.
That honestly, I kind of want to mention, it's sort of, it has that Ted Lasso vibe.
There's a lot of Ted Lasso. Tiki looked at me like I was an on chart, but I still say there's a lot of
No,
Ted
no,
Lasso.
it's like Ratatouille meets Ted Lasso. If it was, if like whoever made that combination was like a guy like Paul Schrader or like Walter, like someone who has a bit, who's like from a working class, like violent neighborhood, or just something like, it's not something like the optimism and the joy and the happiness. It feels quote unquote more earned in your mind because the characters have to go through so much crap and so much obstacles that when they have like a moment to breathe or like a win, the win just feels much more satisfactory.
Yeah, Yeah, that's the thing. There's like you have the artfulness of the food, the culinary skills, mixed with kind of the Ted Lasso underdog story with the underlying optimism. Only there's a lot. Basically, it's a little more wall to wall Roy Kent, admittedly, but it's there.
It also helps that these all the characters in the show just have a genuine passion for like fine dining and just food as a whole. Like I think this would be a very different show if all the characters felt so destroyed emotionally and spiritually from just being in the restaurant industry, and you could make a show or a movie or just or or like a project like that. But I think this show really works because these are people that are just trying to make it day to day. They're the relatable every man, every woman, every person, and through that you get to have really great explorations of obsession, passion, mental health. You see sort of the impacts that COVID had. I think this is probably the one show that I think really I feel like I felt the presence of what happened the past few years, and especially with the restaurant industry, going through a lot with what happened in the pandemic and all that stuff. It felt to me that this was the show of the moment that wasn't about the moment. It's like, hey, we're just look from the headlines. Like this felt to me like this is a show about people that I would encounter in any city in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, there's something very kind of rough and tumble about Chicago that just feels right. They could have easily set this in New York, and I like how we have kind of New York and kind of diametrically opposed to Chicago. New York is like where we have the Michelin star restaurant, and Chicago is like we're kind of like it's new ground.
Deep dish pizza and Chicago hot dog, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
There you go. Anyway, so again, there's this optimism despite like the whiplash levels of tension that are all over the place.
Yeah.
So again, I really like how we kept build. Honestly, I'll say this, and then we'll get into it. I just really like how we keep building towards something here. Like each season, it's implying that we're kind of approaching an end goal of our story. Like it's been very story driven. There's been minimal to almost no padding, which I appreciate. And it's like this whole thing's about the birth of a restaurant, and with that you have like the genesis to. I mean, just long game. I'm thinking we're building to like the start of this dream to the end of the dream. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know how optimistic it's going to be at the very end, but they're saying we keep building upon it for 2 seasons now, and the Maya it's only 2 seasons. You have to introduce the idea and then do something with it. So three is the determining factor. Three is going to tell us like okay how much story do we really have in this tank? Because we birthed the place, we've built the place. Now what do we do with the place?
Let me see if I. Oh, I do believe. I think earlier this year that it was renewed for season 4 and it's filming back to back with season 3.
Yeah.
So I am very curious. I mean, I guess when you and I watch season 3, we'll have sort of an idea where season 4 can lead to. But I think I do agree. I do appreciate that the Bear for the first season and the second season, there's a particular like arc or like, hey, here's the season like story or plan. So season 1, it's like, hey, try to manage Mikey's restaurant, the beef, and then in the end, the change of status quo is like now we're going to start a new restaurant. And second season is like, hey, we need to prepare and basically just have everything lined up to just launch this restaurant and make a splash. And what I really appreciate is that I don't know if you had this sort of like feeling and for certain episodes is that the way that the cast characters really embarked upon like the big mission for like each season. It felt like if you I know you're watching For All Mankind, but you know how like in certain seasons it's like
I'm caught up in all For All Mankind.
okay, so For All Mankind, you know how there's a lot of tension, a lot of build up for like the mission control, just to set up the launch and then manage the launch, all that stuff. I felt a lot of that kind of tension and just like a million things are happening all at once, and like 20 or 30 people are just trying to like keep the plate spinning and not have too many of them drop it all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the way that the editing of the show, the like the ramping up the like say the music or the sounds are just sort of the sound editing where it's like you get to, especially for when when you're focused on Carmi, you really get to feel just a sense of like being overwhelmed and so much stimuli. You just kind of almost shut down, and I think it's just really artfully done. But yet, even in spite of those things happening, you still are excited to see like just them doing their job and or just going about their restaurant experience, which I think for other creators that may not have been interested in trying to have this character succeed, you'd be just kind of like white knuckling throughout the entire show. And I feel like the show doesn't try to overplay it, because I feel like you can definitely be a little burned out being always on the edge of your seat.
Yeah. And again, we'll break that down. So go Geass anime fan in the comments. Always prepared for the podcast. Let me just highlight that here. He says, "Hi, I'm shameless about the fact that I couldn't bear to watch the bear." So he's coming in with the right mindset. All that I know about the show is that it has one of the sons from Shameless making food. Where is the bear of the bear? Well, to answer that, go Geass anime fan. The bear, well, it's short for Bearzado. It's the main reason it's called the bear. But there's like bears, like because of the name pun, they kind of put some bears on like the designs of the Dream Restaurant, and we have like a vision of a bear. So the bear's there, just
It's kind of like the way how people say, "Oh, we like acknowledging quote unquote the elf in the room." I think there is kind of the anxiety and overdue stress and pressure that
it's like the bear, the burden, kind of like it's the cross to bear. You get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and speaking of Odenkirk, I haven't seen Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad. Well, Code Geass anime fans dead to me. Okay, so we're just gonna move on. All right, so let's transition to season 1. So what we're gonna do here, folks, is we're gonna there we go. Yeah, Code Geass, Code Geass, you can weigh in on this, I guess, if you want. Do you want some red or do you want some blue? Okay, Rick. You know what? We're just gonna go with blue. You said you never saw Better Call Saul, so we're just gonna go with blue. Okay. All right. Anyway, so we're gonna break down season 1 here. Basically, kind of talk about kind of our the highlights, just kind of like the stuff that we but kind of the main talking points, I guess, of the season. Just to kind of talk about no particular order. We might jump around a little. So I think the place to start is just the premise of this show. So Carm inherits the beef from his basically the beef family business, which is a sandwich shop, primarily sandwiches, but I think they do other foods aside from sandwiches there too. I think. Like sandwiches, fries, stuff that goes with the sandwiches. So
like American food, quote unquote.
Yeah. Anyway, so so Carm Berzado, he inherits the beef after his brother's suicide, and his brother, played by the incomparable John Bernthal, used very sparingly. I appreciate the bold choice of using Bernthal sparingly. I thought it was a really good choice that really strengthens when he pops up, which is, it's almost once per season. There might have been some like occasional pop-ups. Mainly, he's really there like once per season, at least so far, going from 2.
Yeah, I think it's really I didn't think of it, but yeah, they use him sparingly, and more often we hear characters talk about Mike, Carmi's brother, and I think you would think like the quote unquote the classic rule in storytelling is like show don't tell, but I think the way that the bear does it is that while the characters are quote unquote telling about what Mike like was as a person, the way that the characters themselves are telling about Mike and how they emphasize certain things that he did or inflection, word choice, or whatnot, you are showing how the characters felt about Mike and how Mike's life was really impacted them and through the aftermath of the death, like how they talk about him. There's especially with like Tina and Richie, you get a lot of regret and just like pain on their part for, if not enabling Mikey's addictions, not doing enough to prevent them or mitigate their doing. Like they feel as responsible for the suicide as Mikey was for pulling the trigger. So, and I think that's really goes to show the quality writing and the quality acting on everyone's part. Just that a character that isn't shown a lot, you still feel their presence just by the way the other characters are feeling.
Yeah, and again, like the whole show is very much like getting into Carmi's headspace,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that goes a long way because we're seeing how the family is processing grief, and like season two is very much built upon the theme of family, but season one is very much kind of like, I feel season one through Carm is like the theme of survival and changing the culture. Like you have 100 days to change the culture before it changes you, kind of vibe. So like for example, like we have Carm. He's recovering from a breakdown thanks to the kind of the unnamed Joel McHale, kind of Gordon Ramsay-esque chef. Basically just kind of sent basically broke Carm, who was like operating at peak efficiency, and then basically like the need of like maintaining the stars will drive chefs to either great cruelty or on the edge of madness, which sadly Carm kind of snapped. And I like that we don't see exactly how he snapped. I mean, the implication is that it might have involved fire, but still. So what I'm saying with the premise and everything, I just love that he sees it. Basically, the whole point of the show is like we see that even a simple sandwich place is as stressful as a Michelin star restaurant. Like that's your sell, and that's what kind of sold me in episode one. That okay, I'm interested in seeing this character's journey and seeing what he's going to do next, based on that premise of just like how he wants to keep this place afloat for the emotional reasons of he his brother left this place to him, but he was kind of slighted, not given the keys to the kingdom when he probably should have,
or not even giving the not just that, but also like Carmi just feels a certain type of way in the fact that Mikey never brought in Carmi to work the restaurant with him. And I think that's sort of like a chip on his shoulder that Carmi's kind of working through and managing the restaurant and having to deal with sort of Mikey's lack of business diligence and how that's kind of biting them in the butt.
So all that's great. So I love all of our obstacles in this series, particularly how we segment them in the seasons. Like season one is very much against survival, and that we want the business to survive. We see the very stressful day one that happens. We see that no one is on his side, but they kind of grow to like him, and they kind of see that, man, this guy has a point, and we could be seeking our full potential here. And then as the narrative goes on, we see that basically the whole series. I guess like the one of the thesis for the whole show is again the whole price of exceptionalism thing. Like you could achieve the highest in your field, or you can like give your all, but with the whole obsession thing you were laying out earlier, right? It's kind of like you give your all, you obsess over every detail, you do make things perfect, but it's perfection at a cost, and is that cost worth it? That's essentially like the main kind of thesis of the show, it seems. And I think one goes a long way in showing that, and two then doubles down on like Carmen like mulling that over, that life choice over, where one is just basically trying to lock it in. So one of the great characters, we got to talk about Richie.
Richie, oh man, he is probably my favorite character of the entire show. And I don't know about you, man. I can definitely see why Evan Moss Backrack was picked to play Ben Grimm the Thing, because holy shit.
Do you say, is it Bacharach? Is that how we're supposed to say it?
How do you pronounce it?
I have no. That's why I'm asking. I don't know.
I think it sounds about right for anyone.
You say like Barachi or something, but it's not.
I don't know how you get that.
Well, no, not Barachi. I'm just saying, like, sorry, I misspoke there. But like Baraka or something. But I can't really. I just don't know how to say it. I keep meaning to look at an interview when he introduces himself, but I keep not. I don't have the time to do it.
I think I heard like late night show hosts say Evan Backrack.
Okay, Bacharach. Thank you. It's easy to remember. All right, like the singer. Okay. Anyway, so Evan Moss Bacharach here. I absolutely see it. After seeing this show, I do see. Well, it does kind of irk me just slightly, and it's not a deal breaker because they're never really going to see each other again anyway in the MCU. But against the fact that again we have Micro and the Punisher both in this show, and yet in the MCU again, it's like they've both been in that show together as those characters, and we're just going to kind of recast them. I'm not saying we hadn't done it before with Marshall Ali, obviously, but that's what I'm saying. Like those characters are kind of separated. They're one of them is no longer around, so there's room for a doppelganger to arise. But the point being, be that as it may, this guy definitely exudes Ben Grimm. He's a very solid choice for Ben Grimm.
Mm-hmm. And the journey that Richie goes from beginning of season 1 to end of season 2, it's a fucking great arc for him as a character. And the writing, I think for a lot of people, I can definitely understand them not liking or maybe turn off with how Richie acts at the beginning. But I think if people were to stick it out and really kind of let the show present Richie as he is, warts and all, he comes out as such a compelling and sympathetic and a character that you really root for, especially at the end of season 2. And I think that goes down to Evan Moss Macro's like skills as an actor. It goes down to the writing. It's basically taking a guy who is from the streets. He's very much like a ruffle tumble, quote unquote, problematic guy. But then the more you spend time with him, the more that there's something more underneath all those layers, and that also such a person from that with that particular background and mindset can have the opportunity to grow and change and be a better person, and even like probably the best version of himself that most people wouldn't even envision at the beginning of season 1.
Again, it's like Carm bringing out the potential in everyone, and it's Richie is like he's the prime candidate for that. Plus, he's like the biggest connection he has to his brother, because Richie was Mikey's best friend. They essentially ran the beef together, and you get the sense that perhaps it's not explicitly spelled out, but I mean, it's given what Richie was doing to make ends meet during the pandemic, it does seem that he might have steered him down some really bad really bad directions of business, and that may have I think Richie might have some guilt for like the pressure that befell Mikey.
Yeah, and that's like coupled with just sort of his personal issues with the fact that like he's divorced from his wife, and he has like just a few times to spend with his kid, and you can tell. I think would really, because I think when watching Richie, it was like, oh, like he's kind of the loudmouth, he's funny and all, and but you honestly like him. But I think that would really won me over was when he's with Sid in the car, and he's talking to his daughter.
Quest for Coke.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm just like, oh, there's a lot more to there's like a soulfulness and sensitivity to this character, and that really made me think like, oh, this is a show where it's like people at each other's throats. That's it. This is like real breathing humans that have anxieties, have insecurities, but also have the cliches of hopes and dreams. But it's done in a way that isn't saccharine or sentimental. It's done in a way that's realistic, but moving. And not only just, and that goes just beyond Richie, but just really to all the other characters. Like, and they're all different backgrounds, different sensibilities and vibes. So I really want to give props to the writers for this show for being able to make each character not necessarily be from the same cloth or have sort of the same voice, but really have their own identity, have their own aspirations, and still be someone that you can imagine being your favorite character or someone you just want to root for throughout the run of the show.
Yeah, we love flawed characters. Flawed characters again because we see ourselves in them. I think, or we see like just the improvements in the arcs. We see like the potential for change. And what's great about Richie, in contrast to Carm, is that again, Richie talks a big game, but he doesn't quite have the skills for the big leagues. It's kind of like his thing as a character. That's why he hasn't really. That's why he's having the problems that he has in the business setting. But he does have the ambition, though, and the guy knows how to keep the status quo running, and that's his strength. Where he basically the thing that he's bumping up against with Carm is that He wants the beef to stay the original. He wants the beef just to be, what it has been, what it always been, as kind of a tribute to his friend, and that's admirable and it's understandable. But at the same time, this is, Carmi is trying to kind of like, in a sense, he's trying to make this a tribute in a different sense to his brother and to his family. He's trying to really, he's trying to put his own spin on it. It's like he's not like changing things out of like a vengefulness. He's trying to, like, deep down, and like Carly doesn't really realize this till the end of the season. Once he gets that card, is that this whole time he's been basically trying to, working through his traumas and his pressure cooker kind of mindset. That's basically him getting, as we learn in season 2. That's basically him getting over like all the stuff that he kind of grew up through with his family, and it's him processing, his upbringing.
Yeah, and I think what's really great about Richie's arc is that he represents sort of this great idea that's talked about a lot for in the context of education, but I think really is applicable to just life in general. Is there's the idea of like a growth mindset. So for a lot of people that maybe come up and maybe not had the best opportunities or a lot of things going their way, if they have a certain mindset that things can change or whatever, they're limited to thinking or feelings of being able to grow and adapt with the times. So I think with Richie, with how he interacts with Carmi in season 1, especially how he interacts in regards to, say, Sid, I love how there's the constant word of ecosystem, like that there's a natural order of things that occur with the beef, and by Carmi and Sid doing what they're doing in season 1, there's sort of a disruption. There's something unnatural, something like wrong about it. And I think for Richie, it's just like he very much, I think, represents some sort of mentality for guys in that particular social strata, neighborhood or whatnot. And just in America, to a lot of extent, is about feeling that so much of the world is changing and they're just kind of feel being left behind or made useless or whatnot. And I think what's great about Richie is that he has those feelings, but the show doesn't make it like he just constantly is just left behind. And that's the arc for his character of the show. It's like he has those feelings, and then when push comes to shove, Richie can rise above his baser instincts or issues and be a better man. And I think that's there's something really beautiful about that, because I think for other show, let's say the show was on HBO or just maybe not a specific service, but just a a different set of writers would make Richie's character to be a tragedy, but I appreciate that there is a beauty and hope for Richie's character. And I think it's true for all the other characters. And I think that's sort of the things that for the restaurant industry being as chaotic, being as tumultuous as it is in the show in real life, there are people that are wanting to provide great service. And I think the quote that comes to my mind is like hospital and fine dining have shared the same word, which is hospitality. And that is such a great statement and a great point about why these characters do the long hours, have to go through the stress, because they want to provide something meaningful, something of value to people that are wanting to just get great food, and just the whole experience is worthwhile.
Yeah, and again, it's just that quality of Richie where everyone, even the ones that are annoyed by him, they love him to pieces. The guy's just, he's a charmer, even in kind of the, the more street toughy kind of sense. The roguish charm, if you will. And I do love that in the first episode. I think this is a really big step in like really winning us over on him. Is that Carmi's kind of getting beat up by the crowd outside, the gamer crowd outside, and he fires the gun, and he makes sure his cousin's okay. And also, it's really endearing that they call each other cousin in like that really great kind of like symbiotic way through the whole show. And even though they're not technically like cousins, it's like cousins in like the Hawaiian sense.
Or even a lot of like ethnic families, really.
Yeah.
There's like family friends of mine in Indian culture. We call it like auntie or uncle or whatever.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's like in that kind of sense. That's the
Yeah,
whole like even with the whole uncle thing, which we do here. Like, those uncles aren't like blood uncles. They're just uncles.
yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of which, I love Oliver Platt. I want to talk about Uncle Jimmy. I want to talk about Uncle Jimmy Cicero. So he's great. I think it's a nod to his role in Chef. I'm convinced it's
Yeah,
a
I was
it has to be right. It has to be a nod
I
to it.
was thinking of that earlier this week. It's like,
The
oh my
second
god,
he showed up, I thought, "Oh my god, this has to be a nod to Chef."
yeah, and oh man, now I'm hoping for John Favreau to show up on the Bear.
We have all sorts of guest stars in season 2. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, this is like I am curious. Like, I think it's a testament to the quality of the writing that a lot of like not like big name, but like actors that 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 have been in quality shows or movies just have make appearances and just do a great job with their role for an episode or two. And man, I'm really excited to see who's going to show up season 3 and especially show up in season 4. I think
I want Odenkirk to come back in 3 because he has a very important role in 2.
that's right. Yeah. Oh man,
I'm hoping he might come back as an antagonist in 3 potentially, but
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so this character he won me over so hard. I mean, aside from just being like Oliver Platt, it's just the fact that he's I always equate it to a moment from Breaking Bad. It's like Gray Matters from Breaking Bad. This was season 1, episode 4 or 5, I think. I think it was 4, probably 5. Point being, Gray Matter is the big episode in which, like pretty much from the opening of the episode, Walter White goes to the Schwartz's birthday party, and they basically offer him an out, like a solution for all of his problems in the entire series, right up front, like episode like 4 or 5. After we've done basically kind of our 3-part sell of basically our essentially our pilot in 3 episodes, essentially is what you would call like the first 3 episodes of Breaking Bad. Because yeah, it's the old adage is like it takes 3 to get addicted to Breaking Bad. You watch the first 3 episodes and you'll be hooked on it. Point after all that, after we sort through that, goes to this birthday party. They say, "Hey, we'll pay for your cancer treatment. We go, yeah, we'll do that for you. We're rich people. We'll take care of all your problems." This show and then Walter White. It's a question for any characters like if you provide a solution to the dilemma up front and they make a choice, kind of in opposition to that. Why do they make that choice? And that's what the show is. It tells you a lot about the character and what the real story is. And we kind of do that here, where okay, Uncle Jimmy provides a solution. The restaurant is in great debt, is failing, and we kind of learn a little bit about Carm here. Like, why wouldn't he take that deal? This guy's like, he's like, this is like the restaurant's very much in debt, but I will forgive that debt out of respect to Mikey and everything, and what the family's been through, and just not no harm, no foul. This is not a reflection on you. It's understandable. It's a big burden you've been given here. You don't have to be saddled with it. Very nice man, this Jimmy, this Uncle Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, in taking this deal, it seems to me Carmy it's an admittance of failing his brother and more so an admittance of his brother's shortcomings as a business owner. And I think to do right by his brother, he wants to see this through and make his brother's vision a success when his brother couldn't crack it. Now you could look at that as like that's the altruistic version of it, or you could look at it as the perfectionist looking for a challenge. I'm going to turn this into the dream more so because I want to prove to that Joel McHale chef that which by the way, the Joel McHale chef, he was so scathing and so cruel to him in those brief glimpses that we get. It's oh man, Joel McHale's awesome.
Yeah, I think also his look, like it's the hair and the glasses that make it so, and like those two things and his delivery, you really feel small. Like you feel in Carmi's shoes how small he feels, being just cut down by this chef.
It's like if Gordon Ramsay weren't like a walking cartoon, he would be this guy.
He's like if Gordon Ramsay was American and had Cillian Murphy's attitude.
There you go. It's about right.
Yeah, and it goes like, oh man, the way because the thing is, it's like there is a bit of an unreliable narrator aspect. So how much
that's true? Yeah, you're right.
Saying is what he actually said to Carmy, and more just how Carmy, all his insecurities were projected on to the chef, and the chef just said what all were in Carmy's head. And
you're right. I like how it is ambiguous, but I really think he said that because we've seen like Carmy lose it in the show, so he was again kind of acting like that guy. I don't know. I like to think that I'm just saying, based on the culture we've seen, like the top chefs, like the Gordon Ramsays of the world, kind of get like that. Now, I'm not saying everyone has that. I'm not trying to stereotype like kind of our Michelin star chefs, but it does make you think, though, that that's kind of like the whole corrupting power thing. That maybe that does happen. Like we have the chefs going around, like, oh look, there's our chef, look at him wave. But behind, once he enters those double doors, it's like, hey, you know,
He's Fletcher from Whiplash.
yeah.
I can see that. I think for me there is also a good argument for it being Carmy's head
No,
because
absolutely, 'cause it's all ethereal and white and everything. It's possible. You're right. It's
well,
absolutely
that's the
possible.
thing because the beginning of the show it opens with like Carmy interacting with the bear on a random bridge in
Yeah.
Chicago. So there are moments of surrealism and more, a
Mhm.
little more abstract. And
When the
I
receipts are printing, you let your brother die. You killed your brother. Kind of.
or like when Carmy's like disassociating and he's seeing all like the
The fire.
flash. Yeah.
No, I mean, look, you're right. It is absolutely possible. And until that that Joel McHale chef has to come back at some point because we have to give that guy a name. We still haven't named him. I don't know. Anyway, um, let's see. The point being, sorry, circle back these, but yes, that's the thing. He's trying to do right by his brother, but it's a question of how much of that might be a little bit of ego there. Just like I'm going to make this impossible thing work. Make I'm going to impose my will upon, just kind of like undo all my trauma and like kind of conquer it that way, or how much of it like he's trying to do right by Mikey. But yeah, I just love that it was like a no strings attached gesture. It was of goodwill, and Jimmy loves the Brazados, as we see even in the hectic Christmas special. He loves them,
Mm-hmm.
and I love that. I think one of the best moments with Uncle Jimmy was we've seen this done 100 of other times, and I love we subvert it so well because he's having them cater like birthday parties and stuff to help pay off the debts, and which one is really nice, just a really a realistic way. Like I'm gonna help you work off your debt in a way that won't bankrupt you. So they cater his kid's birthday party, and Carmi makes like homemade ecto coolers, which one of my favorite details, by the way, that he can do that. But it ends up, Richie ends up screwing things up with the Xanax, and we Xanax all the kids, and they all conk out.
Yeah, when that would happen, I was like, oh my god, like if he didn't have like if there wasn't if he had like a full amount of pills and it all just came into the ecto cooler, like it could
It's
have gone
Heaven's Gate.
what?
It's Heaven's Gate if that happens.
It's an accidental Jonestown, let's be real.
Yeah, that's what I. Yeah, I guess that's probably was. Yeah,
Oh man. Uh
literally the Kool Aid. Essentially, it's the same.
I'm just kind of wondering if you're a parent that comes out and sees that, like how do you not have how do you not like have concerns about like, all right, what do these caterers do?
Well, no, they're sauced, and look, the parents are sauced, and they're like exhausted by the kids. Like, they'll finally slip it off. Okay, let's see. One of my nitpicks about the series is that I felt like there should have been some sort of ramifications to the sleeping pills incident other than, well, I guess it's not done. Well, that's the thing, though. We've seen that so many other times where it's like, is there ramifications of like, oh, God, what's happened here, and it's going to be a setback. We have to spend like a whole episode like trying to fix it. It's like, no, he's good. Uncle Jimmy's going with it. It's like I think that's a good joke. Just we're just gonna cut through it this time. Just like, I'm okay with this. But there's all the dread though, of like, oh God, we really screwed up. So it's not like it was completely like there's like consequence free completely. It's like, oh God, we really could have screwed up here. We are so lucky. Uncle Jimmy's a cool guy.
feel like I feel like the ramification should have been if more than just Pete got more like an actual adult got like had the extra cooler and then passed out. That would have I think there should have been more ramifications if more of the adults drank the extra cooler. But the fact there were just kids, like you can kind of pass like, oh, these kids are just super tired.
Yeah. So by the way, I love with the ecto cooler. It's kind of this runner of it's almost like Pop's Barbershop from Luke Cage. The idea there are a few like lauded celebrities that kind of were exempt from things where they didn't explicitly say it because they had all sorts of pictures and everything up around the beef. They love Bill Murray, they love Ghostbusters, they love Harold Ramis, they love the Chicago talent. So with that, it's like maybe like Bill Murray eats for free here, kind of a vibe.
Oh, that's most definitely the case.
So I was saying with the whole Ecto Cooler is like a nod to Ghostbusters, and it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, let's see. So Sydney, so she's a big she's one of the big three of the show really when it boils down to it. It's kind of Carm, Richie, and Sid ultimately. So she's kind of one of our other leads of the show. She wants what Carmy had. She wants the Michelin star experience. She wants because she has a good backstory. She comes in, she ultimately comes the sous chef, like the number two in control, and she had this failed catering business, so she's kind of gone through this before, but on her own. She thinks like, hey, if this is another guy who's been in that world, we could make this work. I could team up with this guy.
Yeah, and I really kind of appreciate sort of you. I think for certain, I think Richie and Sid are characters that I think people might initially get annoyed or just not like because Sid is very awkward, and she does not doesn't necessarily have to be like just conversational, just being among people. And I think part of it is one, she's just very anxious and not wanting to screw things up, and that makes things difficult. Like, she can't just get out of her own head. Same to a certain degree, just like Carm has issues getting out of his own head. And two, I think I don't know, like there's sort of an interesting kind of class dimension to the show. And not to say that Sid isn't like working class, but it feels like for all the other characters, like all these chefs and the beef, they are a working class vibe. Whereas Sid is like she's from the working class, but doesn't necessarily like have like the fact that she didn't know about Coach K, um, or just like I think just terms of the food and all that stuff. Uh, like she has specific aspirations of having a little bit more of a fine dining, a little more fine experience. Although her main dish being like Coca-Cola praise ribs maybe cuts against that. So I don't know. What do you think about sort of Sid's initial like trying to initial issues gelling with the group?
Well, again, so it's interesting that we, through Carm and Sid, they're very much, everyone's kind of looking down at them because they do come from, very kind of a more upscale kind of cooking world, and they're trying to change the culture together. And with that, we have like a lot of hazing between the chefs, like between her and Tina. Like, I'll admit, it's necessary, but like I think to the degree of which Tina was sabotaging Sid, maybe it went on a bit much, but it did pay off really nicely when Tina was like actually like the whole potato thing, where it's like, hey, this is like, no, you did good. Like she's not just pushing her to be mean or anything to her. It's just like, hey, no, I really want look at what you can achieve if you just do things my way, and I really thought that was nice. She's I love the runner with Tina where she's like saying Jeff and like Jeff all the time.
Mhm.
I love like she's again so she's stubborn but she's won over. There's a lot of charm there. She becomes ultimately Sid's sous chef by the end of things. Um, season two more so.
Mhm.
I do think there's one thing with Tina though. I'm just going to jump on the Tina before Sid though. I mean, with Sid, I love the familial component with her father in season two. Um, we see how she handles stress. Like the whole thing with it's like she's a little overly ambitious. She's trying to whip the chefs in the shape, and in doing so, and trying to change, she tries to change the culture a little too much, or at least not too much, but too fast. And we have the big debacle with the online orders, which leads to the utter bedlam and chaos. And she even stabs Richie, minorly, but she stabs Richie. A knife entered his body.
Not on the asshole though.
Yep. No. Oh, come on, Rohit. Yeah. But yeah. So that's a breaking point. She kind of quits after that. I will say this. You know what though? I don't think she had the right to quit in that moment.
the
Why did
ruling.
she caused that mess and she just walked out? You know, it's like, come on.
I mean, she didn't have the right to, but I think that was probably necessary from a narrative point of view.
Well, the point is, like, she could have melted down. If she stayed there, she would have had a mental breakdown like Carmy did. She didn't do that. She left. So that's the difference between her and Carmen. That's what we're saying about those characters. I understand that, but it just feels like she really left him in the lurch there, and she really goofed like, "Hey, we're gonna do this online ordering, which we've never done before, and so far so good." But like, oh no, I didn't like pause it while the orders are being made.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, like the whole pre-order thing. It's like, is that something that couldn't just been opted out of that feature? I guess maybe for anyone who is following along and maybe has like a bit of experience in the restaurant industry, please let us know because I feel like that's something that it seems like an unforced error, doesn't it?
Well, what do you mean?
Like you, like I can't just like, is it just because like for the whole issue was that there's a crap ton of orders that come in because there's a pre-order feature that's enabled.
Yeah.
So I just feel like for me, it's like, why would nobody think to just like? I feel like it would be something you would have to like turn on, like is it always just on and you have to manually just disable that feature when you're
Well, that's
setting.
the thing. I don't think she set like the parameters of like from this time to this time allow the orders to be placed while we have time to make the orders. I think that's like what she just didn't put in like this like she just kind of let it like open from now and then. It's just going to keep going and going without any stopping points.
Yeah, I guess also another point to it is that like for as much as like these guys are great chefs, they're not necessarily good in sort of the business aspect of the of fine dining. And I mean, there's Natalie who knows how to do the bookkeeping, numbers, all that stuff. But like, but I think like, I speak as an attorney, I would never want to like start my own firm or run my own firm because as much as I want to be a good attorney or great attorney, what have you, like running your own firm, there's basically being having a sense of business is such a different skill set. And I think for Sydney, that reflected just how much she was just she's a great chef, but not necessarily a great business person. And I think it's funny that like that out of all the characters, Richie's the kind of person that knows sort of I mean, it's still culinary service, but it is there is more of a business angle to like knowing what the customers wants, needs, and all that, and be able to deliver said service. Whereas for the other people, they're more just like, how can I make the great food possible in the quickest time possible? But for the like more, logistic stuff, that there's still some hurdles to clear. And I think Sydney, it's kind of a good humbling moment because I think Sydney, the way she carried herself, she she didn't really have she didn't have like that much experience. Like Carmi has the most experience, and it's not like he knows sort of the business part of it. And I think that's sort of I think something that's not necessarily thought of is like you can be an experienced chef but not be experienced in the business person. And I think that's how a lot of restaurants don't work because you can make great food, but like, how do you balance the books? How do you balance payroll? And how do you make sure orders are like all like supply chain logistics, what have you, keep like getting vendors to deliver things in time, all that stuff. That's the difference between you can get great food versus you can provide great service. And I think that's something that's always a challenge for these characters to go through. Like, okay, you can you can give good food to people, but you have to make this run like a machine. And I think the whole French Brigade, like, and the trauma with that is emblematic of that struggle. So
Yeah. Yeah. So a few other characters to run through here. We have Abraham. We really never do a lot with Abraham. He's just basically a representation of the old guard. And we kind of do some stuff with him next season when we kind of take him to the culinary school. So we'll put a pin in Abraham. Marcus though, Marcus, love him. He gives the most Ted Lasso vibes of the bunch.
he's like the well, I feel like I get more vibes of like a more chill Danny. Like he's just pure about just loving just to be creative. Like
Yeah.
if football is life for Danny, like food, especially desserts and like baked goods, is life
Yep.
for Marcus.
Well, it's life unless you're a dog on the field, but yeah.
Oh man, we need to have an animal that eats like one of the foods like that's intended for humans, and they die. No controversy for the
There you go. That's how we open season 3. We have a dog gets into the chocolate sauce like the donut eats the donut and then chokes to death, and Marcus feels terrible. He finally
food
cracks
is
the
good.
code on finally cracks the code on the donut. Which, by the way, my favorite runner was I love that he's trying to crack the code on the donut versus the cake, because the donut's like you have to get the shape right, you have to customize it, you have to do it's a whole production. And he's so obsessed over the donut in his leisure time that's encroaching on his work and causing the power outage and everything. So God bless Marcus for really caring and trying. So Marcus is the first one to really turn and kind of get on board with Carm, and I love that with him. By the same token, though, he's being nurtured and kind of mentored by Carmi, and he gets so heartbroken when Carmi's like slaps that donut out of his hand.
Why are you fucking me, Marcus? Why are you fucking with me? It's like,
God,
and it's like,
it's such a heartbreak. It's like he kicked a puppy and then fed a donut that killed it, but it's like he kicked a puppy.
yeah, and just him like slamming the tray of donuts on the table. Yeah,
Yeah, poor guy.
mm-hmm.
Plus, I mean, we learned what his home life's like too, which is, oh man, like Carmi, how could you do that to poor? Like, come on, forget calling Sid, call Marcus. He should be the first call. Anyway, so let's see. And again, this kind of the whole relationship between the professional drive and the personal desire thing, which kind of foreshadows season 2. All right, Neil Fack.
God, I love his dynamic with Richie.
He's so delightful. Yeah, so Neil is he's a handyman. He's very useful. He's ever lovable. He's the key to making all the repairs that are needed when all the things turn disastrous. Every time something breaks, like, okay, we're getting some Neil Fack tonight. We got we got the toilet like turning into a fountain. We got we got the power outage with the condenser, and then we have like cooking outdoors. Yes, it is. It is a really good name. But yeah, Rohit. So Neil, what do you like about the dynamic?
It's an R-rated Abbott and Costello dynamic.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I bet.
Richie just like air humping like Neil, and Neil's like, "Why are you trying to fuck me?" Oh man, and like Richie's just like trying to strangle Neil. It's just, oh man.
I just love like the bicker again. This honestly the interactions with Neil are the ones that really make you think like, okay, Edmund Moss Bacharach, he could absolutely beat Ben Grimm because he's bickering with this guy like he's the Human Torch. This is delightful.
Mm-hmm.
So just the idea like with it's the fact that like almost like children on a playground, he rats them out. He sold coke during the pandemic.
No. Oh, don't tell mom. I'm telling mom. Okay,
my favorite. I know we're jumping ahead the two, but just I think we'll say most of the sugar talk for season 2, which is coming up in a few minutes. I do. One of my favorite things is like how motherly she is towards Neil.
Thank you, sweetheart. Yeah, it's like,
honestly, God, I love when she calls him sweetheart. It's so effing cute.
I do feel for Natalie though, because like, man, being where she said what she has to go through, she has to kind of feel like, especially with what we see of like Donna Barzado, you almost feel like Natalie like had to step in the role of the mother for Carmen and Michael, and man, that's with how she feels about needing her mom and wanting her mom to be there for her and just the family. It's tough, and and honestly, with Natalie, I appreciate her relationship with Carmi, and the dynamic between the two is probably one of the most realistic depictions of siblings I've seen in movies and TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love Natalie just getting on Carmi's case about not going to the thing, and when going to alley on, and when he does do it, like she warms up and feels happy for him, and is concerned for his well being and all that stuff. And in light of what happens later on with her being pregnant, it's like, man, like her being however months pregnant she is, and still doing all the work with at a restaurant with launching a restaurant. It's she's a great character and adds a lot of like fun dynamics to the to the cast. I especially love just the fact that she's married to a guy like Pete.
Mhm.
And Pete, God, I don't know why. If I had a nickel for every time there's like a wholesome dad like, guy that's named Pete, I would have two nickels, with Pete from the Bear and Pete from Deadpool 2. And I appreciate how it's funny how like for Pete at the beginning when he shows up, it's like, oh, it's like Pete's kind of like the scrappy dude of the bear, where it's like characters grown or like they don't appreciate or like they think he's lame or whatnot.
Yeah, PD power.
It's like, but the thing is, in season 2, especially the end, with him seeing Donna, like, man, you and him being there for Natalie, just being a good supportive husband, and him just generally, I appreciate that even though the rest of the crew, the rest of the characters may not love Pete or be endeared to Pete, Pete always is never malicious. He's always loving, and there's everything nothing insincere about his appreciation for Carmi and what he does in the restaurant. Like he
Hmm.
genuinely likes and is like a fan of their thing. Um, and that I think is just endearing to me. Like it, and really, here's what I'm gonna jump ahead to a little bit of the fishes episode.
Oh no, no, don't jump to the fish yet.
Okay, well, all right. I have something to say about Pete for that fishes episode.
Yeah, of course, of course. We'll
My-
get to them.
yeah,
We're gonna be a lot of time dedicated to fishes. All right,
all right.
we're almost there. We're almost there. All right, so I guess to round out, so again, there's the element of danger too, just in our Chicago setting too, because we have like gangs that are like shooting at each other outside the window. We have like we're selling cocaine, to stay afloat during the pandemic. There's fire. There's a lot of elements of danger.
You got Chicago regulations to go through,
Oh yeah, the health inspector too.
the fire system suppression, the fire suppression system compliance. Oh my god.
Yep. Oh, so yeah, it's so much stress. We have the element of danger and the stress mixed in on that. Plus, I mean, Uncle Jimmy is essentially in the mob. We don't spell out what he does in the mob. It's like I think the idea is like a low level kind of loan sharky kind of thing, but still, he's like he's connected.
I don't get loan shark vibes
I
because
know. I don't know what he. I'm just saying it's like it's
I
the
just
only
feel
logic I have for like
I
because he's
just feel like
not.
he feels like a guy who owns a few businesses or is involved in a lot of businesses and has like a certain takes a certain percentage off of
Yeah.
each and thus like makes his money. And I
Mhm.
think he just has a lot of good connections,
Yeah.
and that's like, I mean, and that could seem like with the Chicago background, with the Windy City, all that stuff, they could be a little like elbow grease and a little,
Yeah.
look the other way and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
it never seems that for it to go as dark as one could imagine. At least we don't know where season 3 or season 4 can take us, but I think what is interesting for me, it's like the whole sort of process and just trying to jump through all the hoops. It's just like it's sort of that phrase: "If it rains, it pours." And my God, it's not a pour; it's just a fucking flood for these guys in the first 2 seasons.
So I mean, with Mikey himself, though, with all of this going on, like you get the sense he was trying to celebrate family, but the business side of things, like as we've seen Carmi go through this season, you get the sense, and my inference is that the business drained him and got him in over his head, which is why he was like contemplating burning the place down for the insurance money, and he shot himself in the head just again because the stress was too much, and he left it to Carm. With that, we had that lovely note. All that's it's perfect. The whole I love the whole withholding the letter thing because he withheld this little card on the card says I love you, dude. Let it rip. It's a great simple thing they wrote on there, The fact that Carmi, he's so stressed out by everything. You know, he's got literal burnout to the point where he almost set like a huge kitchen fire.
Mhm.
It's not the first time we've been building up the whole season. So we pay that off in the last episode, and the meetings aren't really filling that hole. And because he has an unresolved kind of issue with his brother this whole season. You know, he's become Joel McHale's chef in the kitchen, which he did not want. He's had a low point, and we have that beautiful payoff for Richie, who's grown a lot this season. He sees his. We had the big moment in the last episode. Richie was almost in jail for manslaughter by complete accident, where he punched a guy, a drunkard, at the bachelor party, and he some of the great acting from Evan Moss Bacharach there, where he's like talking respectfully to the to the prison guard, asking him like, well, what happens?
Yeah, and he's lucky to just get aggravated assault.
Exactly, yeah. So that I love everything about that. So, but what's really sweet is he comes out of there and he sees that Carm waited up for him the whole night, and that really strengthens their bond. That leads to that card moment where they need each other, and he gives it to him, and basically we find on the backside of that card, you know, it's the spaghetti recipe, which he was at the very first episode said, no, we're not doing spaghetti. He shuts it down. It's like that's the divide he wants from the family, but ultimately the family spaghetti sauce, spaghetti recipe, that was that was the key to it all. Had he done that in the first place, he would have had all the money up front.
You know what? Have you've seen Arrested Development, Dragon?
No, not really.
Oh my god! I feel if Tiki's here, he would get. It's like so. There's a joke. I'm gonna spoil this. This is a joke from the Arrested Development. So, one of the characters says like the money is in the banana stand, and the response the character receives as like, oh, it's like the banana stand is a profitable business. He finds out that there's literal money in the banana stand, and it just feels like, oh man, I'm surprised I'm surprised I've seen you guys haven't seen Arrested Development. I figured you guys seen it before I did, but this was the point. And it just feels like the money, like the profits is spaghetti. The prosperities is spaghetti, and it's like, okay, like you really like spaghetti. It's like, no, it's the little money is the spaghetti, and it's like, Michael, just say that, hey, open these cans, there's money in there. But I guess with the way he ran his business, not being the up and up, it's like he basically just
Well, plus, if anyone else sees that letter just by some chance, he wants to make it something only he would know.
Yeah. Nobody's just like, well, I like to make spaghetti. Just like a random kid, he just gets like.
But again, he left the Carm, and he knows his brother.
Yeah. Oh man, imagine if the letter was lost. That just like Richie thought he put it, but then someone like a janitor or so whoever like picks it up and just tosses it or
Yeah.
places it else.
Yeah. But still, just a really wonderful surprise and a great payoff that like the solution was there, and it's like it's the key to like family ultimately is the key to making the dream of the bear happen. So that's good. So it was a very solid ending to season one.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to season numero dos, season 2. Twice the beef, forming the bear.
Yeah, season 2. The whole like, oh, we're just gonna open the restaurant in 3 months, and it's like, I'm just thinking all the logistics, all the money. It's like, I'm just surprised. Like it's for me the most surprising thing is like there wasn't like a collective breakdown among the crew as they were getting close to opening. Because my God, like the thing is like with what like the thing is like in fiction, it's kind of simplifies or it's streamlined, but man, with all that's being described, imagine like in reality just how hard it is to like launch a restaurant. You have to pay fees to like be registered with the state, licensed to have a license to operate a business, health inspections, fire, like all the like. And the thing is, these things are necessary because you obviously, you want business to run a certain way, the up and up, and also like be safe to occupy. But with this building just basically being built on like cardboard and hope, and maybe not there being much hope in the first place, The struggles that this that the cast had to go through in just passing and just like certain inspections to checkpoints, especially a freaking fire suppression system. That was like you either win it or you don't open this restaurant. I never imagined passing an inspection had so much drama, but yet the bear had just eked out as much of it as it could. And that's a testament just to the, as I said before, the writing, the acting, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think the theme of season two is transformation and change as we're like constructing the dream restaurant. There's a big we have that great ticking clock. Like we strike a deal with Uncle Jimmy. It's a big risk. It's like, hey, you just paid off your debt from season one, and you want more money, more than the original one. You want 500. The original was 300,000. You want 500,000, which you don't have, and you basically you have 18 months to pay it off, and the restaurant opens in 3 of those months.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh god. So that's oh boy. It's quite the burden, quite the bear. Quite the bear for our intrepid band of chefs. So again, it's problem after problem in the mundanities of like basically refurbishing and renovating the existing rundown restaurant that we operated in all of season one, turning it into the bear. Sugar, she's in charge of it, big player this season. She's running the financials. She's really brings something to the table. Again, like you said with Neil, she's all nice to him, and again, you see that she definitely has the potential to be a good mom because she's essentially had to be the mom to the family because of Donna and her mental state. So it's great seeing that kind of come through, and then we literalize it with the whole pregnancy thing.
Yeah. In any other show, it's like, oh, like, oh, it's such a miracle, such a joy, and all the other characters be celebration. But for now, it's like, oh, great. Now there's another thing to have to deal with. There's morning sickness, and then just sickness and having to go through like a shit ton of paperwork.
Yep. We have that great gag with the wall where it's like the wall comes down, everyone learns she's pregnant.
Oh man, I think to the like when Richie's like poking it, like, look, if this like building, if there's moss or like mold or there's issues with like the walls, if I poke the ceiling, it just breaks, and he pokes the ceiling, just and like Richie just looks so defeated after.
God. Oh, the place again. It seemed so functional in the first season. Not great, but functional. That's just a dump.
It's like the more you like look under the hood, the more it just breaks apart.
And yet they pulled together by the end.
Oh yeah, through by the skin of their teeth.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so again, family is a huge component of season two, for obvious reasons. One of those reasons is we're building to the fishes episode, which is our huge kind of missing piece of the puzzle for Carmi and for everyone. But just to build to that real quick, we have all these other characters having like familial stuff in their stories, like Sid trying to convince her father that this venture won't be like the catering business, that this is like what she wants to do with her life, and that she's in good hands. Again, there's a kind of a Ted Lasso kind of vibe there as well.
Yeah, I think I love it's like her dad's like I don't like want I'm fine with you not having being super successful, whatever. It's like and I think it comes from a good place, but I can understand Sis perspective. It's like she wants this to be the thing, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote. And there is an aspiration to like make something of your life, make something your own. And it's kind of funny for her. It's out of all the characters, it's so funny for her to try to learn leadership through just like reading a biography of like a college basketball coach, like Coach K, Duke men's basketball. And I kind of want to bring this point earlier, but I'll bring it here. Is that for me in seeing how like the the crew, and I mean like the chef crew, all that stuff, how they operate and all that. It reminds me sort of like this show called Winning Time. That's all about like the Lakers in the '80s with Magic Johnson and all that, and how they had struggles to try to like build team chemistry and just be able to have a team worthy enough to win a championship, to win X number of championships. And I think the comparisons to like it's like seeing them operate is like seeing a sports team just trying to like have the flow. And I think the things that come to mind is like Carm is like we need to have a system, we need to have a flow, and like the fact that like Carm was tying himself from going from station to station reminds me how like for say a sports team, like you're trying to see like how fast is your times and trying to cut down your times and all that stuff, and the emphasis on the system. In Winning Time, there's about like how do you have a system to like do offense or defense, and sort of the ability to improvise on the fly as a coach. It like Sid wants to have that aspect or embody that aspect in her like leading the other chefs. So that was kind of a cool kind of comparison and just dynamic to see that play out.
Yeah. So, this like again, I like how we kind of segment a lot of our guys here. Like they're kind of spread out to learn a skill that pays off by the finale. I thought that was like because usually it's a risk when we kind of split up the team a little bit there, but I don't know. At least I think it had a good story payoff that necessitated it. So with the familial side of things, Marcus, we learn his home life. He's got like a sick, practically comatose mother who may or may not be waking up by the end of the season. It looks like she wakes up. And what do you think? You think it's a death call, or do you think it's a she woke up kind of call?
I think it's a death call.
Oh man, really?
I don't know. It'd be. I feel like it wouldn't. I feel like it would be such a good like bittersweet moment in the end of season 2 was like they nailed the like quote unquote launch or like the day with friends and family so well, but like something in your personal lives went wrong, and so you have mixed feelings about that day, and that's life. Where it's like some things went well for you, some things didn't go well, and I feel like that's just how the bear operates, where you can do great in personal life, but things not go well at the kitchen, or even vice versa, and just about trying to like hold on to the small victories and let go of the big defeats.
I just think you hate the optimistic coma ending. That's what I think.
Well, I think that I just think that hold on. Don't try to make me out to be this sick, malicious.
No, you're Mr. Pull the plug. You don't want anyone to come back from the coma. You just want nope.
No, because here's my thing.
There's no hope for the boys. Is BS. That would never happen.
First off, I'm going to make this quickly. I think there can be for if Marcus's mom passed away, I think that can bring out such a great. I think that you can have interesting things happen to Marcus on a narrative level, because I think for Marcus, he is such a sweet guy. He has such great love and desire to be innovative, artistic, and and I think it's so interesting. Like, how do you keep that momentum going? How do you keep that desire when something just tragic happens to you personally? Like, do you just enmesh in and just kind of block it out? Do you just not do it anymore? I think there's interesting things about someone who's passionate about the art, someone who's passionate about just any endeavor. When something so personal happens to you, how do you make sense of yourself in relation to the things that you do that bring you joy or happiness?
It
And
does. It does bring up a really good idea that with the whole exceptionalism thing of the seasons, like maybe like it'll be a thing where Carmen's like, "Man, Marcus, you're really coming along," and of course, like the way which he got there is well, his mother passed, so it's like is at a cost. Do you reach like a kind of a new heights kind of thing because all your focus is going into it, but what do look at what you lost.
that is an interesting idea, because the thing is, then it's like Marcus, he might struggle initially, but then maybe he'll power through. And
Yeah,
even greater heights. And it'd be so cool. It's like, oh, he has that like initial joy that he made this big accomplishment, and then the kind of like the graduate ending to where it's like there's initial joy, exhilaration, and then kind of sit for a few moments and just just kind of feel empty. You're just alone with the fact that like, or just like, or even feel sad. It's like, oh, he has great accomplishment, but like he wishes he could tell his mom about it, but his mom's gone, and
yeah.
that I think is gonna. I think also with if his mom passed away, I think maybe him and Sydney, who think Marcus generally likes Sydney in a certain way, and I think that kind of tension back and forth at the end of season 2, I think something that's going to be picked upon and
Yeah.
more fleshed out. And I think if Marcus were to lose his mom, I think Sydney, not that she would do it out of pity, I think Sydney would reach out to Marcus and care, and then maybe you can have an episode or a scene where Marcus, is invited to dinner or like a meal with Sydney and her dad, and
Yeah.
to just stir up his spirits or just to get him outside, his home or just outside the shell.
Yeah,
And
or there'll be a scene where he's on he's on the bus with Sid and he's gonna be thinking to himself, maybe I should have gone with the mother.
so what do you mean?
No, it's mean like he was the graduates, the dumb joke. Just like he was on the bus with her. It's like, maybe I should have gone, should have gone for the mother.
Yeah, no, I think they're
No. And also, I do agree with your point there. I do think I do a lot of people have been like shipping Carmi and Sid. And I think it's Sid and Marcus. They have
yeah,
chemistry. They like each other. I mean, they've been like really nice to each other, good friends. They both quit in season 1. I think they're on the same wavelength.
no, I think Carmi and Sid are like good. So they're like a good example of like a platonic male
Yeah.
female like relationship that's they're equals and contemporaries and they also think alike. But I think the difference between Carmi and Sid is that Sid doesn't spiral in the same way as Carmi, and I think especially with how Carmi like just spoke aloud about Claire, I don't think Sid, even in her worst moments, would ever blame her personal life for being in the way of her professional career. And I think that's and what that speaks to? It
What?
speaks to her dad, her having such a good dad in her life.
There you go.
Which
That's actually something to explore in season 3. The actual patriarch of the Brizzato family, like the father.
yeah, and I think with how Sid, she's got her hands in the securities, but her emotional foundation I think is rock solid because of how great her dad is.
Yeah.
And I love the scene between her and her dad celebrating her like their late mom's birthday, and him telling the story about like trying to like impress his mom and like, oh, I think the engine's broken, and like his like Sid's mom like showing him up, but it's being cute about it, and it's like, oh, that's just a really sweet moment.
Yeah. All right, so I guess the transition a bit here. Everyone's going to want. So let's talk about fishes. So this was like the big episode of season 2. It's wall to wall Brizzatos, guest stars galore. Rohit did live up to the hype. What do you think about
Oh, it's
fishes? Is it an Emmy winner?
yeah, it's
Right.
that 6 for me. I personally love seasons like the 7th episode, but it's episode 6 is so fucking good. It's on a dramatic. It's the best. It's the most well written, most well acted out of in the episodes in the second season and the first season. This is how you make a quality episode of television from beginning to end.
All right, we have to take a break from talking about this excellent episode because Tiki wants us to backtrack and just say the stuff that we've already talked about in conversation that he's just concurring with. I hate the Carmi Sid ship. Ha ha. I'm a major champion for the platonic male-female relationships in media, and they're honestly the gold standard of that, says Tiki. Well, there you go, Tiki. We read it.
I don't know if they're
Well, you're right.
I don't know if they're necessarily the gold standard because there's a
Yeah,
lot
he
more
glowed him up a bit, but it's...
there's a lot more tension in their relationship than the ideal. But honestly, I think in terms of them being in terms of them being very interesting, in terms of them being relatable, like I do appreciate on the friendship level for them is the whole like death signs for sorry that they do, and it went from beyond just those two to like Tina, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if like Marcus or even Rich, like all the chefs just did the same thing, and I think that's such a cool like neat thing of like when people are at their worst. This is a sign. It's kind of like how in for relationships, it's like, hey,
It's a safe word.
Yeah, or it's like or it's like counting to 10 if you're about before you're about to blow up, and that defeats the situation.
Yep. All right, let's see. Okay, so let me just say that Half a World Away was a freaking fantastic needle drop to end the season on. Tiki.
Oh man, I had to say this show has such a great soundtrack. From
Oh yeah.
it's the songs.
My favorite thing is in season two. It's very small. They play the Luca end credit song when they're getting stoned in the bathroom.
Yeah, no,
I would say I love. Look, I only bring it because I freaking love the end credits of Luca. Oh my gosh, I was like so thrilled. Like, oh my god, there's the song.
man, it's whenever it's so interesting the needle drops in the show because I think Dragon, I think you're familiar or have heard the discourse about how like movies nowadays just overuse needle drops and go for the most popular songs. And
See, it's
I think
always the double-edged sword of James Gunn, where it's like everyone like we love what James Gunn did, but everyone then tried to replicate James Gunn. That led to the argument of like, now we can't have nice things, we can't just like have it naturally worked in. Now it's got to be a thing of like, are we using too many needle drops, or is it overshadowing the thing?
I mean, needle drops like any other cinematic technique or trick can be overused and not done properly. And I think this show, in terms of the song choice not being the popular songs, but also too just the way that the song was playing in the scene, it doesn't overpower or overshadow like the acting, the right, like it complements it. I think that's like for good needle drops are, and if you were to compare like a movie or show to like an orchestra, a needle drop is supposed to be just one instrument out of all the other instruments that are in harmony or in a concordance. Well, the writing, acting, and all that. And I think the Bear being the show as it is, all of it's on like firing on all cylinders. And I think that's what makes the needle drops even more appreciative because it's not just overbearing or the most popular. Like the most popular song is in that's played in the Bears, like a Taylor Swift song. But when that song's played, it's such a great moment because it encapsulates like Richie's mindset of being triumphant with after in the time at Forks or in the time of the episode of Forks, and also it gets a good callback to where he has this conversation with Tiffany. Is like, hey, I think I'm gonna stop Taylor Swift. Like, I love Taylor Swift, but I could get tired of it. And so the fact that he can have a moment to appreciate Taylor Swift is kind of like a cool like payoff to that particular moment.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So back to fishes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's it's important to see Mikey again. So we see the most important use of Mikey. He's very much the patriarch of the family, the guy who's like, he is very much like the loud male voice of the family, who's like along with Donna. And obviously, Donna is like she still reigns supreme over everyone. But it's the fact that he's like, he's very much voicing the discontent at the table there. He's got the ego of the cook. He's very much, and you can say this about Don as well, but I think through both, again, if you look at him as the patriarch and kind of see the parental kind of side, period. It's just the fact that Carmi, see, I think we could look at Mikey as like kind of a very human, very flawed, like more in touch with his emotions, like versus like the suppressed emotions of Carm. Where I think subconsciously Carm, he's in fear of becoming his brother, and of course the path his brother took led to suicide. So basically, if Carmi gets worked up like his brother did, he might, again, get ranty in the kitchen. He might just like go off the deep end. He might completely burn out, and he might spiral into a depression. He might kill himself. I think that's what Carmi's afraid of to some degree. Or the other way of looking at it, he'll be as irrational as his mother, and he'll do some extreme stuff that will lead to ruin, like the end of Fishes.
Well, yeah, I think really it's like I think in terms between the two, it's like Mikey really takes a lot from his mom, from the mom
Yeah.
Donna, and I kind of would be curious to see what like because we heard like anecdotes about or stories about like the dad, but it'd be so interesting to see the dad come into the show and how he's portrayed because I would bet you that I think Carmi, I don't know like did the dad die at a young age for the boys and so it's really the mom that's kind of been.
That I don't know, but it seems that way. But I don't think I can't remember them really talking about the dad. Like little to none do they talk about the father.
Yeah, and maybe I just that's where I'm kind of wanting to because I know like the only times in which I remember the dad being talked about in length as like Uncle Jimmy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, that's the most we really get from him. So it
Yeah,
seems like he's around a little bit, but I don't know for how long.
yeah. So I kind of wonder, it's like if we ever get to see the dad like in the show, if he any, I would bet the dad would be a lot like Carmi,
Hmm.
and it's a little bit more low key reserved. And I think there'd be kind of interesting dynamic with him, interacting with Donna, and kind of that balance or semi balance. And maybe with his passing, think that kind of just hurt the mom, and then the mom just kind of like it'd be interesting for like an episode focus on those two, and you can see like maybe the mom's was a little bit more chill when the dad was around, but then when the dad passed, like basically her anchor, just her way to stabilize, kind of just went away, and then over time, like over years of just having being the sort of the lone parent or whatever, she becomes the Donna that we see in Fishes.
Hmm. Yeah. So we have so again with the whole Brizzato family that we get to see here. We have Michelle, played by the wonderful Sarah Paulson. She's really good in this, and she kind of steers Carmi. She gives him the out of New York, which of course goes on to form him. This whole thing is like set 5 years before the start of the show.
Yeah, we're trying to okay, so it's in 2018 then.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, so because I was thinking it's like the latest it could be is 2019 because
Like this is again, it's 5 years before. It's the idea is before the start of the show. Mikey passed away he killed himself 4 months prior to when we
yeah,
started
yeah,
episode 1.
and it's February 2022 because I remember that's the end date for like Mikey's like death for sure or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's such an interesting sort of set piece, like for the Christmas at the Barzada home and the typical like Christmas ornaments and all that stuff. Uh, what was really great was to see, the three Barzada siblings come out and just like talk about just how like nerve wracking and just stressful it's going to be, especially with their mom being their mom.
And Pete bringing the extra fish.
Okay, so
God, I love the 7 fishes
I,
thing.
I wanna say so. So here's my thing about Pete. I feel like Pete was unfairly dogged on, and here's my
He
reason.
shouldn't have brought that fish though. It's 7 fishes. Like they told him not to bring. She told him not to bring anything.
So
Didn't she? Didn't she say not to bring fish?
I mean, okay. If one can be literal about it, one could interpret it's like fish as in like a literal fish. You know what I'm saying? Because the 7 fishes, you see the heads and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like tuna casserole, tuna mac, whatever, it's like I feel like they could be a bit of pass. But that's beside the point. I feel like for me, I feel like Pete was a damn you do, damn you don't, because I feel like if Pete just brought a wine bottle or something else,
What if he brought a pie?
No, I just feel like whatever he did, the Brazzata family, besides Natalie, doesn't like Pete, and they were just willing to just. Although I feel like Stevie can maybe find Pete amusing or like, oh, he's harmless or whatever. But I feel like every other Brazzata just was not like. It seemed to me that Pete.
I don't think that was like an excuse. I'm saying he literally violated the fish thing, and they have this whole story rationale for why it's 7 fishes. Like that's not just them dogging on Pete. All right, I don't think so.
I mean, I'm of the opinion.
I think Pete accidentally. Look, I think Pete accidentally scripted. It's a shame that happened to him, but I don't think they were like, he brought the 7th fish. They were hard on him, but it's like he did kind of violate the rule. He should have left it outside or something.
The thing is, if he brought a wine bottle or just like I just feel like I feel like Pete is not the most liked person at the Brazzado family. But I will say, okay, I think maybe the casserole, if it wasn't tuna casserole, if it was any type of casserole, I think would have been okay.
Yeah,
they would have been.
That's what I'm saying. Look, I'm saying, look, if it were wine, they probably would have said, "Oh, they could have brought a better vintage of wine," but I don't think they would have dogged on the whole time about it. Like versus the fish thing, like the whole feast is 7 fishes, and you brought how insulting to a family of Italian cooks. You brought an eighth fish.
That's Pete being the wasp of the wasp outsider of the
There
family.
you there you go. He's the Evangeline Lilly of Christmas guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of wasps, we have the good old, well, no, that wouldn't apply for John Mulaney. We have a semi uh one a white Anglo Saxon, but not Protestant, Catholic in John Mulaney playing Stevie.
Well, that's a lot of labels, but okay.
No, but John Mulaney being in this and being Stevie,
He
I
was so great in this. I love just John Mulaney's. A lot of people would say like, let him host the Oscars. I'm like, absolutely, let John Mulaney host the Oscars. He was so, and yeah. The Tiki's bringing up here is I was going to get to this. Like, I freaking adore Stevie's genuine amusement at the Fact Brothers. It is just the fact that the way he's dealing with this family. Like in some ways, like it's pure amusement, and others, it's like it's utter fear and just like tension.
I love him poking I love him poking at Sarah Paulson's character. I'm trying to remember the name.
Well, I think like he's like he's Stevie
Michelle.
and she's a
Michelle.
Michelle.
Yeah, yeah. I love Stevie poking at Michelle's like anecdote about like this one woman being an asshole. It's like, oh, and you were the innocent person. That felt like such a real conversation I can imagine
Yeah,
happening at the Christmas dinner.
I think they're such a cute couple, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, fictionally in the show, but I'm just saying it's an adorable like pairing of these two, and they make that. I love them together, and I love everything about Stevie and Mulaney's got charm for days, and he's perfect to put in this really tense situation. It's just like again, he's the successful version of Pete, and like everyone loves Stevie, even like even Mikey, who's getting super into. Everyone likes Stevie.
I I well, it was funny for Michelle to be like, "Oh, you didn't mention at all when it was dating you that like you're from Northern California," and she emphasized Northern California, which is so funny to be being from like Northern California and all that stuff. Um, I also I I really props to the writers and John Mulaney for selling on Stevie's grace
Mm-hmm.
monologue.
Oh
I
yeah.
Yeah, like it wasn't like, oh, this is like a quote unquote like
It's
poetic.
not Linus going over like like the origin of Christ, in the Peanuts Christmas special. He's like actually it's a genuine, it's not out of left field.
Yeah, but it's very much in that John Mulaney cadence that you would like, you can imagine this like something along this lines being said at the end of like a very like chaotic or fun but funny but heartfelt like anecdote in like a John
Mm-hmm.
Mulaney special. And man, even after all that was said, things just get a little tense. All because Bob Odenkirk's Uncle Lee just could not just stop undermining Mikey for just being a guy who repeats a lot of stories.
Yep.
Oh man.
God, it's so okay. So yeah, so Bob Odenkirk as Uncle Lee. And this guy's been built up. The idea is he's presumably another. Well, the inference is that he also is very similar to Uncle Jimmy, and that he might have connects as well. Maybe not, but regardless, he has a thing in the family is that he's the on and off again ex boyfriend of Donna's.
I thought he was an on again, off again boyfriend.
No, I'm saying that is what he's. I'm just saying. In addition to that, I don't know if that means he has like connections or not.
Yeah. Um, man, when Mikey tells the story and then Uncle Lee's like, you told that story before. And then Mike is like, "Oh, it's a good story." It's like, "Well, you tend to repeat the story a
I,
lot of
I've
stories."
I'm sad to report I've gotten into this kind of argument.
Were you the Mikey or the Uncle Lee in the situation?
I to my shame I was Uncle Lee.
Oh man.
Yeah, well, look. To be fair, I didn't didn't get any forks thrown at me, but still, it's like it's a familial thing where it's like you've already. I'm making the observational like Larry David point, like you've already kind of told the story. I'm not digging in like undercutting his story, but it's like I'm
No,
making. Yeah, you kind of told the story before. Like,
you know, transition from that to say you never like you complete story, but you never complete a business plan. It's just like, yeah, I don't
I
think
did. I didn't go that far with it.
Oh my god, when Uncle Lee did that, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like I was afraid that I thought Mike was gonna lay hands on him right there and then.
Well, yeah, that's a thing. So, okay, this is a wonderful runner through the season, starting from this episode onward. The symbol of the missing fork. So, I love that it's kind of like in the finale, we run out of forks. And the episode right after this, which I will talk about, one of my other favorite episodes of the season, honestly, the series, is forks. And it's Richie polishing the fork. So it's the symbol of this terrible memory and just this very Mikey thing that happened, and it's like the ghost of Mikey at the opening of the restaurant when like the forks are missing, and like the reminder of this when Richie's like polishing the fork. It's like this great serrated tension, of just like I'm gonna throw that fork, like please, dear God, don't like just poor John Mulaney, like please, dear Lord, don't let him throw that fork.
I love how like when Mikey throws the first fork, he takes the fork from Neil's side, and
Yep.
is like, hey, you're using it forks. I like that fork. Would like to use that fork, and he's like, okay. Oh man.
I love. I don't know if I've told you. I've had the pleasure of meeting Bernthal. He's he's God. I love it when I love the ease at which he's all nice and friendly, like he is in person. He's like grabs that fork and just throws it.
Yeah, and like him making fun of Uncle Lee and just doing like a dumb like a oh, are sure like just mocking him. It was like, oh man, this is like Bernthal on edge.
Yeah,
He's looking cool. John Bernthal, great at just losing his shit.
that's the thing. Bernthal This is the wonderful thing about Bernthal. We kind of gleaned it here and there with Punisher. But I'm saying he can just turn it on a dime. Where he is like in real life, such a sweet guy, to such a charmer, which we see in the Bear. And but oh God, if you insult his business plan, oh God, he's gonna get so it's gonna get so heated. And the man's like a volcano.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All he did all that as he's like rubbing his forehead.
Yep. Oh, also, I love the bit where Uncle just to highlight Uncle Jimmy here. I love the history that because we mentioned we have this great gag in season one where like he's like writing him like I gave you a gig and you never picked up the phone, like that's not my phone number. Oh, so here we see that they were really on good terms in the past. There was this wonderful thing where to help Richie not look like a jerk in front of his then wife.
Who's pregnant?
Yeah, who's pregnant? He's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll help him out. Just don't tell everyone, okay? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I helped him get a job. He helps him save face in front of his wife, which is really nice.
played by the wonderful Julian Jacobs
Yeah, oh, of course, God, dear God, yes. I mean, Invincible. I mean,
and Community.
well, that too.
Uh, she was great. She was great in that episode, and her dynamic with Eben Moss Backrack as Richie, like I can, they have great chemistry, and it just makes it all the more heartbreaking with where they are in the current day.
Yep. She ended up with the other guy from The Walking Dead.
So she mentioned, yeah, Frank. Who was Frank in the show?
I'm sorry, who?
No, because like not to jump to it at Forex, because like she mentions that Frank proposed to her.
Oh, I don't think have we met Frank?
I wanted to just
No, she mentioned him. I don't think we've met him.
no, I guess we have not met
Yeah.
him.
Season 3.
Oh man.
Anyway, but yeah. So point being, things turn disastrous, and I believe I think it's Sugar. Sugar says she asked Donna if she's okay, which you don't do. Never ask Donna if she's okay, and she goes into such a she snaps. It's very much like Jamie Lee Curtis. By the way, huge guest star Jamie Lee Curtis, Oscar winner Jamie Lee Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
She man, she plays Donna like when Jamie Lee Curtis shows up, it's not just doing a bit part, like she acts, man, and she just snaps and she goes the full Norma Bates, and she loses it, and then she drives. I was floored. Well, not as floored as that pedal was when she crashed through the living room and pretty much into the Christmas tree and everything. She just crashed through the living room and like, oh god, I love that. Really, it's just broad enough. It's like any more broad, and it would be like completely
A
unbelievable. It's like,
caricature.
yeah, I'd be a character, but I just love that it's broad just enough that it's realistic, but it's explosive. I mean, it's the fact that there's a show we can't mention by name for YouTube copyright reasons. But let's just say it's a lot like Everybody Hates Chris. I'm not talking about Everybody Hates Chris. I'm talking about Everybody Something Something. But in that show, the mother-in-law crashed through the house.
Man, now I'm just kind of drawing blanks of what the show is.
Oh, come on! Everybody's in the name, all right. Everybody. There's only 2 shows with everybody in the name. If it's not
Oh,
Everybody Hates Chris, it is that one.
wait, you can't mention the full name?
It's kind of a running gag. We want to. They took down 2 of our videos we did recaps on, or at least one of them, very very fervently. So we were terrified to say the name of the show.
You guys didn't. I can't imagine. Wait, we don't use like footage or anything, or
I know we used like the thumbnail. They didn't like it. I don't know.
man.
We even said complimentary things. I don't know what the problem was.
YouTube copyright strikes. Am I right?
Yeah, regardless. I want to say they hit us with it twice. That's why we really don't like to mess with it. But yeah, for Christmas and Halloween. The point being, this Everybody show with yeah, exactly. So let's just say featuring I'll go as far as to say featuring Doris Roberts. Crash through the wall of the house very intrusively, being the gag. Yeah, we had a mother kind of do that. So technically Frank technically Peter Boyle might have been driving that. But the point being, one of the parents crashed through.
Hmm.
Anyway, I'm saying because of that, it was like a precedent. Saying, well, it is possible, it is doable, but that was like a whole wall. This is just like like one singular wall.
Might be more reflective of the quality of the house.
But that's true.
But man, I think what was great about Jamie Lee Curtis' performance. I mean, everything's great, but in her performance. But I think the few things that stood out. One that stood out to me the most was that like just her like cloyingness with both Carmi and Natalie, and just her being kind of like she's overwhelmed, but she has too much pride to admit to her being overwhelmed for the most part. And then it's this kind of whole like if she was ever, I think it's her whole deal. I think it's reflective of a lot of families, from that particular background, or even just certain cities in the United States where it's very old school, traditional. And I feel like if Donna had maybe more of a modern perspective, was raised with a more modern, values or just customs, and she's having allowed to have space about her voicing her issues and hangouts with being a mom and all that stuff, especially being a single mom. I feel like she would not be in the state that, well, not to say she wouldn't have those issues, but maybe it wouldn't be so drastic to just have her have a meltdown because her daughter maybe asked too many times if she's okay and having to driving a car into the house. Like it's like that old school Italian American, just you know, it's like The Sopranos. It's the strong silent type, Grave Cooper, whatever, and it feels like Donna just didn't have the right venues or given the right opportunity to just express herself about her issues and all that stuff, and she's basically just had to like stomach it through and just, oh, I'm going to be a mom who just is cooking, and oh, the seven fishes, and then all of it just kind of falls apart. And I think what's really sad is just like the fact that like where we see Donna at the end of season 2, like she's much more self-aware, much more, centered and grounded in what she's done wrong. And the fact that she doesn't want to step into the restaurant and just, she wants her kids to have her moment is such a contrast to where she is in Fishes, to where I think part of the issue is that because she feels like she's the matriarch, she has all these pressure and expectations. She feels like she's the center of gravity, or the center of the universe. Whereas if she just allowed herself to delegate and had other people come in, she would be in a much better place emotionally. But because of how she was raised and how she disregards herself, obviously things didn't go that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and of course, the scene with boy, let's see, Dragon isn't gonna know what I'm talking about, but there's a bit with Michael Emerson at the end of Lost. By the way, Michael Emerson, My Adventure Superman, right now he's Brainiac. At the end of Lost, that always gets to me. It very much reminds me of Donna not wanting to go into the restaurant. Yeah. And again, very powerful scene with Pete there. And again, poor Pete just being sad with this, and that beautiful scene of him at the table with Sugar.
And like he's crying and
Yeah.
he's trying to just pass it off as he's just crying tears of joy for
Mm-hmm.
how successful the restaurant is with the friends and family events. And man, great job on the actor playing Pete, and great job on the writing for that particular scene. Because
Yep. All right. So speaking of which, to our finale, it's the big. Oh, sorry, I don't want to. Sorry, can't talk about the finale real quick. So I want to talk about the self improvement aspect of the season. So we've had Marcus going to wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen to, to learn, to learn the pastry arts with Luca, played by the wonderful Will Poulter.
mm-hmm.
You know, which was delightful. We've had Abraham and Tina. They go to culinary school, and most importantly, Richie. We have the aftermath episode of which is Forks, which again very appropriate after Fishes. Um, of course. Uh, yeah, so Forks, one of my favorite episodes with Fishes. Just they worked really well in tandem with one another. We have this intense, loud, just like really tense episode to the very, very serene, very contemplative. Just it's a very uplifting episode that kind of gives a little bit of a breather before the finale. Just Richie learning how to channel his people skills via it's. I love that's like a no brainer. That what would Richie do at like a 5-star restaurant or like at a Michelin star restaurant? Like, what would he do? Well, he'd be the host. He
Mm-hmm.
would put on the suit. He'd show people at the table. He'd be all chummy. He'd be Stallone and Balboa. It's what he would do.
Yeah,
And what's great is that he thinks he's been put there as like a punishment, but in reality he's glimpsing what Carm's world looks like and kind of it's kind of like that scene from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the whole I get it now thing with Frank. So it's sort of like it's like he kind of finally understands like this is what the appeal was. No wonder he wants to go for this. I see what he's aiming for now. Finally.
but the thing is, what I appreciate about this episode is that he improves, but doesn't necessarily have to change as a person. That like he's more self-aware, he's more knowledge, he's more wanting to limit his faults, but it's not like he just becomes a different person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, like he comes with like the pizza solution.
Yeah, and man, his I think what I think would really made I think if I were in Richie's head, I think what made it worthwhile for him to go with this restaurant was I think the lead of the restaurant, what they wanted to do in regards to that teacher couple that were wanting to go to this restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we're not gonna pay no checkbooks for them. Let's find them good service. And it's like, oh, this is a restaurant that's so good that and gets good amount of service that they can afford to just not have like payment for one meal because they value what the customer has sacrificed or has done to get to this restaurant. And that I think it's not like automatic, but I feel like in reading Richie's character in that moment, I feel that the wheels are turning, and with just him doing the forks and all that, I think Richie is kind of just reoriented to now focus on the little things, which I think is especially carries through significantly in the last episode of season 2. And I think the fact that like Richie's like, oh, like he just he feels like it's sort of a goofy and corny thing for how these people act, but he drinks the Kool-Aid and he buys into it, and
Well, he drinks the Ecto Cooler.
that
It
was
was all
right there.
what?
Your comment, that was a knee slapper right there.
Oh, thank you. Well, thankfully, the whole honestly, the place was like it was all kind of a hallucination after the Xanax. It was like, you know what, man, this place is too good to be true. Oh no, yeah, it's because he accidentally sampled the Ecto Cooler again.
Oh man,
Yeah,
what I really love about that episode, especially in the at the end, was when he gets the chance to just like do the logistics and planning. Um, or no, like, or not even that, but like him learning about the different flavors of food and taste tests, and really having a good camaraderie with those people. And it's like, man, in another world, Richie would have just thrived in that environment.
absolutely.
And I think it's so interesting to like Marcus with Luca, Richie with the restaurant, the fine dining, the best restaurant in the world. They could work as like good. They could work as it's kind of like like episodes of like a spinoff show, which is weird to say that, but the way it's structured and the way it's just focused on those two, and there's not much referencing to like the main plot. It's just kind of a like neat sojourns or detours that may not advance the full plot, but advance the characters whose then actions, how they are afterwards, lead to the ultimate culmination of the season arc.
Absolutely, yeah.
I really appreciate Richie just now that after his time in the restaurant, he's wearing a suit, and it looks great in a suit.
In the finale, which I guess transitions us. So in the finale, we it's a big opening of the restaurant. I guess something we should talk about. This is important. We kind of glazed over it. So a big thing with the self improvement theme this
You
season.
mean Kona glazed over it?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So Claire. So Claire is kind of complicated. Okay, here's the thing. So Claire is a double edged sword in that, on one hand, so Carmen Claire is a relationship that it's I think it's the weak part of the season in terms of it's the only lull we have in the story. I feel everything else is kind of going forward in the story. That's kind of the on one side of it. It does feel like this is like we're starting to hit some strides. Like okay, Carmen's getting distracted, and Sid's like not really thrilled with it, and otherwise, okay, so Carm's like, he's gonna fall in love, and isn't that nice? And look, that's fine and dandy. Now, what's good about this, and when I see what they're doing, how it serves the story, what I'm digging about it is it's the big debate with Carm as a character here, where it's like, can I segment myself like this? Can if it's kind of like the age old thing of any creative or performer or what have you. It's the fact of like, if I it's the worry that if I improve mentally, if I fix myself, if I self improve, will it diminish who I am? Will it diminish my talent? Will it diminish the stuff that I'm good at? And that leads to Carm looking at it in those terms as he keeps dropping the ball, and he's thinking like, this relationship is costing me, all the skills I've dedicated my life to here in this restaurant, and she's standing in the way of my goal, and I love her, but I don't know, I got to pick a path there. So in that respect, I like the point of Claire, but I'm kind of checked out during the Claire stuff because it just doesn't feel as exciting or really layered as the other stuff. Only until we get to like the end payoff with Claire do I really like kind of see like, okay, that's where they're going with it. That's what Carm's trying to do and how it works with everything else this season. Like it's a good puzzle piece, but it's kind of before you realize it's a puzzle piece, it's kind of tricking you.
I guess for me, I appreciate Claire as a character. I can understand certain criticisms that maybe she didn't feel as much of a character as say the other people in the show. However, I do think with Molly Gordon playing Claire and her performance, I think what was great about her in the season was that I think it presented Carmi an opportunity to feel like a normal person, like a regular person. So like him just like pretending to be another dude named Logan at that one party. I think that so like when do we ever a moment where Carmi is just like relaxing, just being a dude, just being a regular guy? He's just always on. I'm going to be the best chef. I'm going to be. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, bro, just chill out and just live in the moment. And I feel like with how Carmi did, all of what happened to Carmi was self inflicted. Carmi did not have to react the way he did. And the thing is, when he was taking out the equation, the rest of anything, it's anything. I think season 3 and beyond, I think there could be legitimate discussion. To have does Carmi need to be in the bear or need to be involved with the restaurant business? This business to be successful. If anything, maybe him, even if he's fully engaged, fully on board, maybe I would love to see if maybe Carmi has an opportunity to think about. Like, well, I love cooking, I love all this stuff. But maybe there's a certain point which maybe I need to move on. And I think there's a certain lesson to be had about how the things that you can love, you can't let the what you love take over your life. Like there's more to your life than what you love in terms of your work or passions and all that stuff. And I felt like Claire, I think the chemistry that like Jeremy Allen White had with Molly Gordon was great. You know, it was fun. And Molly Gordon's attractive as Claire and all that stuff. For me personally, if I was Carmi's friend, what happened to Carmi, if I saw what happened to Carmi, I would have been on his case. I would say, Carmi, you fumbled the bag, you lost a really great girl. She's a doctor. She was like 6 months away from finishing her residency. Considering how often doctors work, she's probably in one of the few professions to where she would understand and respect the long hours you have because she's also had long hours. Everything was all in a line for Carmi. And Carmi being Carmi, he has a deep sense of self hatred and he just blurts all this stuff out. And Claire is just outside and she feels sad because Claire isn't trying to mess things up with Carmi. Carmi's the one who, it's not Claire's fault. It's really Carmi should have the things that Carmi left out on. I think Carmi needs to just have better time management skills. I think for like not to get too much of a soapbox on it, but it's like Carmi. It's not like he sacrificed learning how to improve. It's like it's just the business part that kind of pushes aside because I think Carmi was so like mono focused on being a great chef. He didn't focus on just like being a person. He put all this like Carmi doesn't like he. I think he mentions a few times about how he didn't really have much friends or like he had people that he hung out with in high school. But it seems like afterwards, like with his issue with his brother and all that stuff, he was so focused on just being like a Michelin star chef and all that stuff, and didn't have much of a life outside of that. And I feel like if I was Carmi, I would like to like look. I would think to myself like, why did I made the decisions I made? And it's like, well, I was so focused. I want to be a chef. I didn't think there's just what is Carmi without being what is Carmi outside of being a chef. And I think that's sort of an interesting conversation to have artistically, where it's like there are certain people that become better people with their passions and grow and all that stuff. But there's some people that need to have more than just their passions. And I think Carmi need I think as a character should be able to hopefully learn that lesson in season 3 and 4 and beyond, and either balance or maybe can take a step back and just find out what's his life like beyond being just a chef. I think with what happened, it's it didn't feel like Claire wasn't doing an ultimatum. She wasn't taking too much. Like Carmen made all those decisions, and I feel like instead of feeling it's the way that it came out, if I was Claire, it would feel like Carmi was almost making Claire out to be this temptress or just this someone who like took away Carmi's focus. The thing was, and I think like I think really think Uncle Jimmy's like speech about like unforced errors, the mistakes and all that stuff really got to Carmi. And I feel like the point for me, I take away is less about keep your eye on the ball and it's more like don't try like because for me the way that the anecdote goes it felt less to me that like he was unfocused. It's more just like he was thinking too much about because the way the thing that one picture I don't remember the name but like the way it's described about him trying to catch the ball he was trying to catch it with his glove with his hand like he was trying to do these many things. He was overthinking. He wasn't going just by what was instinctual or what was just right, and because of that like the game was lost for the Sox for the White or the Cubs and I think for Carmi it's
Maybe
like
the Bears.
what?
Maybe the Bears.
No, it's the Chicago Bears, the football team.
All right. Oh, you're right. Yeah. It's kind of funny they have the Cubs in it. It's still all bear themed.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to was it the Cubs or the White Sox that Uncle Jimmy was talking about in that story? I think it was. Oh, it was the Cubs because I remember him saying Cubbies. Yeah, it was the Cubs. The Cubs lost because that one pitcher was overthinking about how to catch that one ball. He was trying to go his glove and all that. Like Carmi, things did not go well with him because he was just two in his head and was thinking of the worst things possible. He needed to take a breather and just went like moment by moment. He could he so Carmi for me and because I kind of relate to Carmi in this thing.
I honestly, honestly, in all the stuff you said about Carmen, I do find a lot of relatability to him, to myself as well. You know, like the whole, who are you without your passions? You know, like the whole, that kind of thing. Yeah. So there's also a thing of like just the trust in the trust in others, where he's locked in the fridge, which I love the detail that he's locked in that fridge because like the one thing he overlooked because he was in love. He forgot to fix the handle on the fridge, and now he's trapped in there. But again, leaves up to everyone to put to the test what they learned this season to help save the day, and I think that's a great solution.
Yeah, the thing is, really, like I feel like Carmi being taken out of the equation. I think the restaurant did better because of that.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe, and it seems to me that Carmi, while being obsessive and wanting to do things right, there's also a bit of ego in Carmi. And I think because Carmi is not as like emotionally loud or expressive, you don't get the egotism that kind of accompanies Carmi as a character. And I think the only time you really get a sense of Carmi have a sense of ego was his is like the monologue he has the Al Anon meeting where he talks about how he felt slighted by Mikey not including him in the restaurant and like oh I'm going to prove to you to be the best chef blah blah blah. And it's like oh okay, there's resentment, there's pride and all that stuff, and that's kicked in alongside him wanting to be a great chef. Both of those, and that makes him such a great character. But I think I would hope for Carmi's character if he's wanting to be in a better place, he has to have a need to have an understanding about do you want this restaurant to succeed? Would you be okay with it succeeding without you? And if Carmi has a hard time accepting that reality of the circumstance, that's going to limit. I would think that's a limitation on his part. And I'm not going to get too much of the therapy, analyze it, whatever. But it's like psychologically, it's like it. It seems like Carmi's like thing about his whole catastrophizing. He has the ability to spiral and all that stuff. It all stems from having a very specific image of himself, where he is both the best chef around, Michelin star, all that, but he's also a piece of shit, a worthless piece of human being. Like he is both the worst person that anyone was known, the best person anyone knows, and he doesn't have the ability to just think of himself just as a regular person. Like, and I think Carmi should have his art needs to be about. He's a great chef, but like, can he just be a good person or just a regular guy? And I think that's something that is as worthwhile as just being a Michelin star restaurant, chef. And, and I think that's going to be something interesting to see because if Carmi just like abandons and just micro, like I think that kind of is. It would make Carmi be more of a tragic character than I think the show would make out to be. But there's always that temptation. It's like, oh, we just need to focus. But it's like, no, the whole thing is that he just needs to open his mind and not be so narrow in his focus. Because if he's so narrow and has this image of him being a chef and things don't go his way, I think that's the thing. It's like him identifying himself and having his identity wrapped up being just a chef, when things don't go well for him as a chef, it feels like it's so reflective of who he is as a person. And I think if Carmi had a life, had things outside of just being a chef, things to look forward to, things like Marcus has his mom, like all the other chefs, like they're wanting to be the best. But to me, the other chefs like are people first who happen to work hard to be good chef, to be good to great chefs. And I think Carmi, he just can't imagine himself being a regular person, and I think that's gonna lead him to his detriment. And I think for me, his ideal would be like, ideally he could be like a Chef Terry, played by the great Olivia Colman, who does great food, but it just feels to me, and when with the way Richie interacts with Chef Terry, she felt like a regular person, someone you would ever drink or have tea with or whatnot. And Carmi, it just feels like the only time you ever see him being a person is when he pretends to be another person. And I think that's such an interesting like character thing. It's like, can Carmi what does Carmi like to do besides read and discuss about food? Like, is there more to him? And I think that's something that's important for anyone. Like for whatever hobbies, interests you have, if you can't imagine where you are without them, that's an issue. That's a problem that's gonna just hurt you down the line and limit your capability of just being more than what you like or what you do. But that was my end of my long tirade monologue. So Carmi, chill out, be a regular dude. That should be the arc for him and get back with Claire because he's never gonna get a girl that attractive and with a career path, a job that accommodates with his busy schedule as a chef. Just saying.
Well, thanks for weighing in on Carm's dating life, Rohit. But let me put it to you this way, okay? At the end of the day, at the end of this finale, Carm I think learned a hard lesson that if he's going to put all that effort into making food, and there's no one around to eat it with him or eat it or to watch, basically, honestly, just to share the meal with him or just to watch, like to serve the meal to. What's it all for? And if he chases everyone away like the Claires, like the Richies, if he's just alone, he's alone in that fridge with the ingredients of greatness. He's the ingredients for greatness, the potential for greatness, but he's like Schrodinger's cat, man. He's both alive and dead in that freezer. And that's kind of where we leave him at the end of the season, which is an interesting place. He's kind of left him in isolation, separated from everyone, and he's going to be contemplating things. And I think season 3 overall we're going into is like he's going to have to seek the answer to this whole the career and the passion versus humanity, getting over the healing, living.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think with where it ended for Carmi is it's an interesting contrast to how it ended for Sid. Because Sid, she had all this pressure into and she was puking her guts out, and her dad
Yeah.
saw her in that condition. But you know what? Her dad was there
He was
and
proud of
supported.
her,
Yeah, and
proud of his Sid.
and at the end, like, what's the ending shot? The ending shot for Karami, he's just there with the sparks flying as the doors being pried open.
Hmm.
And Sid is just looking out and smiling triumphantly. She learned from Coach K, and it's kind of funny. Like for her wanting to be as much of a chef, she still has like a stable foundation or center with her dad. And even though she aspires, she wants to do more. Like she doesn't feel consumed by being a chef, by being the best as Carmi does. And I'll be very interested to see in season 3 if Carmi can be able to learn from Sid, or even say Marcus, or just really any of the like. I would love for like Carmi to just go out there and just not even think about food. Like, what would Carmi just think about or do? Because I think that's the thing. It's about like there's a fine line between passion and obsession, and Carmi is just, if he's not careful, there you just wait. He'll wake up and it's like, oh, I have multiple stars, and you just cook for strangers, and that is an existence to where you can make the most beautiful food, but I have the most lonely life,
Oh yeah.
and considering what how Donna was, she had her issues, but man, imagine how Donna would be without a family structure. But yeah, it's I'm very interested to see how things turn out for Carmi and for the group. So I am curious for you, Dragon, and pose this questions like where do you want to see things go from season 3 beyond, and where do you want kind of the show to culminate for all these characters?
Well, again, I really want to see Richie, become the host that he wants to be. Which, by the way, Olivia Colman, kind of giving him the pep talk later was also another great kind of casting pull.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I want to see Richie do well. I want to see him put it together. I want to see him maybe in good terms with his daughter and stuff, which he seems to be. But I'm just saying I want to see Richie in a good place.
Yeah,
I think I don't know. I think Carm's gonna find. I think he's gonna patch things up with Claire. I think. I just hope we don't end up in a thing where. Sorry, let me put it this way. He's in a really tricky spot because I wonder what we're going to say about exceptionalism at the end here. I mean, I think at the end of the day, Karma's going to have some catharsis with the chef that we kind of pictured in the first episode. I think that's ultimately where we're going with his stories to show how far he's come. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the next season or more likely 4 or what have you, but I think that's kind of where we're going with him, where he's going to have to get over that. He's going to have to get over that trauma, and we're going to have. I think we're going to leave the Berzados in a good place. Now, I don't know if that means we're going to. I doubt we're going to fix Donna or anything, But I think we're going to leave him in a good place. I think we might have. The restaurant's probably going to do well, but I do. My question is if we're going to leave it on optimistic thing of like the restaurant could go under, but it could leave like a lot of word buzz or anything, or maybe a best case, there's talk of franchising the bear. Maybe that's how the last season goes, and it's about the longevity and the future of everything, and like building something, and kind of like the name living on of the Berzados.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a way to go, I mean, in regards to legacy, if you have that, and you also have the birth of Sugar's child, I mean, you might be able to kind of connect some threads there, and then kind of connect it to, Richie, Richie kind of patching things up in his own life, and just say, what is he, what is it all for? It's not too late to change. Like a lot of these themes that we've kind of teed up, and just kind of like, going from there.
I here's my ideal ending for all or maybe most of the characters. I think Neil, he does this thing at the restaurant. He finds a girlfriend. He's happy. Marcus, he's able to, if his mom has died, he's able to move on. And I'm, I guess I'm kind of on the fence about whether him and Sid have a relationship or whatever, because it's like I think they have good chemistry, but I can imagine it can get complicated, be coworkers, and all that stuff. Then I think like her getting to the star and then just being okay with just okay, I have a star, and then change your mind and says like, okay, it's less about I have to maintain the star. It's like, okay, I have this achievement. Let me just focus on providing quality food. And I think that's a great again for a character. Richie, maybe he finds a girlfriend and has a partner, all that stuff. Maybe he has another kid and all that. Natalie, I think she's still involved with the business and brings her child in, and she sees a future for her kid to be still involved with the family business, whatnot. Tina, I think like I was very curious. Like I wish we saw more of her son.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was a weak payoff. Like we introduced, well, he's gonna learn here. I don't think we ever saw him again.
yeah, I'm curious if there's gonna be a follow up on that because I would be curious. I would love to see an episode on Tina's like family life and all that stuff. Ibram, I'm just want to know more about. He's Somalian and all that stuff, and I there's like glimpse of like there's more going on underneath the surface, and I will love for Tina and Ibrahim to like get their own focus episodes. Also, an episode on sweeps. An episode on Manny and Angel would be cool as like a funny like twin duo. And for Carmi, I want Carmi to have a Ted Lasso ending to where he moves on from the team, from the crew, and is proud of what they do, and can just come into a random restaurant with Claire or whoever, and just enjoy food. Because remember what happened in the beginning? He comes home and then he eats Dorito chips, drinks soda, he drinks like crap like processed food, whatever. Just
Hmm.
imagine I think it would be a great ending for his character where just come into a random restaurant. Do five like you don't have to be fancy, but just a nice like a restaurant's very similar to the beef.
Hmm.
And just take a first bite and he has a few emotions and it just turns to black. And you just don't know what he's feeling, but
Yeah, it's the anti-ego ending.
yeah, yeah, and that I think would be a great place for Carmi as a character, where he started out wanting to be the best chef, and maybe ends up with being just a great person or a good person.
And
You
the
know,
I lived it kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
It's a way to go.
yeah.
All right, so I want to thank the folks for tuning in here. Got Little Blue, we got Tiki running things for us, and we have Code Geass Anime Fan. So Red, I think we kind of rounded out. I think we're very much we're loving the bear. We're eager for season 3 and onward. See where it goes.
Yeah, it's. I'm so glad that to have put the show on the radar for you all, and because these I've seen the show referenced and talked about, and seeing like clips and gifs, and it's like okay, I really need to sit down and watch it, and I'm so glad for the experience. It's a well written show. It's a well acted show. I'm really season three's out on Disney Plus Hulu, so I'm gonna definitely try to watch that sometime this weekend, and I'd be excited to discuss about that with you, Dragon and Tiki, for our season 3 podcast. And for those who haven't seen the show, please watch it. I guess with all the spoilers I hope you get to appreciate the journey that you get to experience with this show. There's just the focus upon obsession and passion, like I mentioned before, is so well done, and there's so much to like and care for. And if season 3 is of the quality, the first 2 seasons are not better, then I think this is gonna whenever this show ends, its full run, whatever seasons it at, it's gonna be one of the best shows of the 2020s. I feel, if not one of the, certainly one of the top shows of the 21st century.
All right. Well, folks, we finished our dessert. It's time to tip the waitress and get out of here. So till next time, again, we will be talking season 3 as soon as we all see it,
Hmm.
and we'll tell you what we thought. We'll review the next the foolhardy course that's given to us by the wonderful servers. at the Bear. Waka waka. Good night, everybody.
See ya.